Let's make simple text-based snake in C++. We are going to work with two versions, demonstrating different ways how you can draw the screen. It is a great project if you are just starting with C++ or just want to understand how a basic game loop works. So let's get started. First, we need to set up a game state. We define variables for the game balls, width and height, the snake's position, the fruit position, and more. In the main function, we are going to remove the hello world, which was there as a template, and just initialize all of these variables. I also add return 0 as traditional way how to end the program in C++. Let's draw the borders. We have two lines defined by the width. Now let's add two vertical lines to have full-scale rectangle. Well, technically it's a square, but because of the text mode, it's a rectangle. What can we do next is, based on x and y coordinates, draw a snake's head. In the same manner we should draw fruit, which is defined by fruit x and fruit y. Perfect. We have the area, we have a snake, we have a fruit. To make things clearer, let's move variable initializations to a separate function, setup. So now in the main I can remove all of this and call just the setup. Let's do the same thing with draw. In general, this is a very good thing to do. You can write your code in a simple manner, and over the time when you see a use for that, separate it to functions. Now we have two distinctive things, setup part and drawing part. As you can see, nothing really changed from the user perspective, but the code is way nicer right now. And this is something you should aim for. Let's start with the movement. Head is saved in position X and Y. As you can see, we can save it to tail X and tail Y as a 0th element. We can also try to increase Y variable by 1. This increment should cause that the snake will move downwards. I want to see some actual movement, some operations repeated over time, and for that we should use cycle. 4 in this case. I want to repeat it 20 times. Draw, saving the previous position of the head and increasing the position of the head by 1. And yeah, something weird happened. We also add a delay to control game speed. Delay is not usually how we do it in modern days, but here for the demonstration for the old school snake it's good enough. In Windows, for the delay we can use sleep. And now things are still weird, but you can see the actual movement of the head. Now what we are missing is some way to clean the screen, because as you can see, I'm just printing the characters on the screen, one after another. What I want to do now is to clean the screen and write everything on a black dark void. And take a look! Very nice! What I did right now with the animation can be part of a logic, so let's create a new function, let's call it logic, and let's just replace this line with a function. To control the snake, we need to capture user input. For that we use these two functions. The concept here is to separate key press and key read. We are going to be notified that some key has been pressed, but still we need to read what key it was. Depending on the key pressed, we set the snake's direction. For that, let me immediately define function input. And as you can see, with press of respective key, I'm setting their variable to appropriate value. Now my game knows into which direction the head's supposed to go, but this is not translated in an actual movement. This calls for an update in logic function. I want to increment x or y or actually decrement them based on the direction, what I said in the previous step. It already looks pretty good, but I have only 20 frames to play. What I want to do now is to change this to infinite loop, to an actual game loop. The game runs in a loop until the game over flag is true. It's still repeating itself until certain condition is met. And if you remember from the Tetris, input, update and draw. That's the game loop. Here I chose different order, but it doesn't change anything. I can still close the application using the cross on the top right, but let's make it clean. User should have an option to exit the application properly. We can use key X, for instance. And now we can freely move to all directions and exit. Let's do it in the way that the snake is not going to collide with the border, but it's going to wrap around. This is actually very easy to do. It's a part of the game logic, so this goes to logic function, and it works in that way. I'm checking x and y and comparing them with width and height. My snake is now wrapping around. Let's start with a tail. For that, we slightly rearrange our draw function. We remove some else statements and fix the size of the board to have width of an actual width, not including the borders, which means that now we are 2 columns short. This is easy to fix, just add 2 to bottom and top border. Now when we have a tail, it's good time to add an ability to eat the fruit. I'm checking x and y, the head position, with the fruit x and fruit y. If it's equal, it means that our snake is coming over. I'm increasing the score by 10, let's say. I'm generating a new position for the fruit by random, and I'm increasing the length of a tail by 1. As you can see, something weird is happening. The tail looks like stuck in the up left corner. We need little update in our logic function to move the tail properly. There is a similar idea as for the head, applying position of the previous link to the new one. And now this already looks like a real game. However, it is very easy to play because the player already cannot lose. Let's make it more complicated. We really want to keep our walls passable, but we can end the game if player hits itself. Now I'm eating 5th fruit and the snake is long enough to collide with his own tail. Last touch is score. I'm counting the score in a score variable, so I'm just gonna print it out. Let's check how it looks. It's a simple but fully functional snake game written in C++. However, you can see that the game is flickering. This is not that difficult to fix. The reason why it's happening is that every frame you are deleting whole screen and drawing it again. This is actually how things works, right? You wanna have 30 frames per second, so you should do game loop 30 times per second or 60 times. We should use a trick to mitigate the difference between empty screen and fully drawn screen. Technically, we need to set the cursor to the top left part of a window. If we need to access the window, we need something called the window handle, for which we can use getStandardHandler. To move the cursor, we can do this. It's very trivial. This allows us to use go to XY00 and remove the system clean screen. What happened is that now I'm not cleaning the screen every single frame, I'm just redrawing it. With our way how we draw the game, when we access every cell anyway or every character, that's absolutely fine. It's a valid approach. The game logic remains the same, you can see it's just a few lines, but the visual improvement is huge. You can try to modify the code to add new features like walls or increase speed. That will be all for today. Code is in the description. If you have a question, just drop a comment, and see you next time!